old Star Wars Expanded Universe, now known as Legends, had a ton of great starfighters in it. Some of them have been brought into the current canon, but many have not. Let's take a look at some of the best. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and these are the best starfighters in Legends. Ewing. Let's get the Ewing out of the way first. I think the Ewing is probably one of the most famous Legends starfighters, though it's hard to rank their popularity so long after the end of that continuity. It does appear in canon, but only in one scene, so it still counts as a Legends ship to me. Compare that to the TIE Defender, for example, which gets a lot more focus in canon materials, playing a major role in Star Wars Rebels, Squadrons, and Tales of the Empire. Which is why it won't be on this list, by the way. The TIE Defender is more of a shared ship between canon and Legends like the ships from the Clone Wars, at least in my opinion. Technically you could say this about the Ewing now too, after it appeared in Ahsoka, but with only one scene it's more of a Legends ship with a canon cameo. The E-Wing was intended to be the New Republic's replacement for the X-Wing, but unfortunately had critical issues with its laser cannons and bespoke R7 astromech droid model at launch. These were eventually corrected, but pilots remained wary of the E-Wing and it never ended up replacing the X-Wing, though several elite squadrons did end up using it. It was built by Frytech, a manufacturer formed from Incom engineers who fled the company after it was nationalized by the Empire. Production began shortly after the Battle of Endor in 4 ABY, and E-Wings were in use as late as the Second Galactic Civil War in 40 ABY. The E-Wing measured 11.2 meters long by about 9 meters wide and 3 meters tall. Its top speed was 1300 kilometers per hour in atmosphere, and it could have either a Class 1 or 2 hyperdrive. It was fairly well armed with 3 IX-9 medium or heavy laser cannons, and 2 proton torpedo launchers with a capacity of 16 torpedoes. The E-Wing was well shielded and heavily armored, and cost 160 to 200,000 credits new, or 80,000 used. Nssis-class Clawcraft. The next fighter I'd like to discuss is the Chiss Nssis-class Clawcraft. This was a joint venture between Grand Admiral Thrawn's Imperial Remnant, the Empire of the Hand, and the government of his homeworld, the Chiss Ascendancy. It was essentially a standard Imperial TIE Fighter cockpit ball with Chiss technology inside and attached to it. It had 4 swooping, curved wings tipped with laser cannons, and a long tail containing its thrusters and hyperdrive. Its hyperdrive used a beacon system unique to the Chiss, where it could make lightspeed jumps to Chiss anchor points without needing to carry an expensive and bulky navicomputer on board. Emperor Palpatine began sharing technology with the Chiss under the advice of Grand Admiral Thrawn at some point during his reign as the Emperor, and the Chiss began developing early models of the Clawcraft. It wasn't until around 25 ABY when the Nssis-class began to see widespread use with the assistance of Thrawn's Empire of the Hand. They were used in many battles of the Yuuzhan Vong War, fighting with the Galactic Alliance against this intergalactic threat. It was also used by the Chiss Expansionary Defense Force as well, and saw battle against the Killik in 36 and 38 ABY. Hopefully one day we will see Clawcraft in canon. With Thrawn becoming the main villain of the Mandoverse shows, I think there is a slim chance of this, but I really doubt the Chiss or this ship will be involved with that at all. The Clawcraft measured 7.65 meters long by about 3 meters tall and wide. It had a top speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour and a Class 1.5 hyperdrive. It was armed with 4 Sinar Fleet Systems LS-7.2 laser cannons, the same model seen on TIE Fighters produced after the Battle of Endor, and its cost was unknown. I-7 Howlrunner. I don't think the Howlrunner is a terribly famous or popular Legends starfighter, but I've always been fond of it since seeing it in the Essential Guide to Vehicles and Vessels that I regularly checked out from my school library as a kid. It isn't a visually exciting vehicle, but it has a kind of interesting story. It was named after and inspired by a dangerous predator on the planet Kamar that the engineer who designed it witnessed hunting. More importantly, though, it was designed by Incom after the company was nationalized by the Empire to try to distract them from the X-Wing design team defecting to the Rebel Alliance and taking the X-Wing's schematics with them. Unfortunately, the Empire was quite upset with Incom over the X-Wing incident, and relegated the Howlrunner to older starships and backwater Outer Rim bases. The Howlerunner's lukewarm reception wasn't helped by its weak weapons and poor targeting computer, though at least it did have upsides in its speed and maneuverability, as well as the ease of training TIE fighter pilots on it, due to the two fighters' similar tactical doctrine of overwhelming force through quantity of ships. The Howlrunner was in use at least as early as 0 ABY, and was used all the way through the rest of the Empire's history, and even into the Yuuzhan Vong War in the 20s ABY, and the Second Civil War in 40 ABY. It actually became much more popular after the fall of the Empire, as Imperial remnants lost access to most of Synar's production facilities, and found the Howlrunner easier to get more of than the TIE fighter. The ship measured 11.4 meters long by 7.8 wide and 2.3 tall. It was quite fast at 1300 kilometers per hour, but had no hyperdrive. Its two laser cannons were not particularly powerful, but it made up for it with a shield generator and a tiny profile that made it quite hard to hit, let alone destroy, allowing it to stay in the fight for longer. Despite its many shortcomings and lack of sophisticated equipment, it cost 165,000 credits. Cloakshape Fighter. Another favorite Legends fighter of mine is the Kua Systems Engineering Cloakshape Fighter. It is technically canon, having appeared in the canon Heir to the Jedi novel, but it hasn't been seen again in the decade since. This was a durable and highly customizable starfighter popular with pirates and other independent operators. Virtually every system was modular and could be replaced by any skilled mechanic, and even extremely extensive modifications like installing entirely new systems or even converting the cockpit into an escape pod were possible. In fact, upgrades and modifications were so common that it was said to be impossible to find a stock Cloakshape by the time of the Battle of Yavin. The most popular modification for it, a rear stabilizer wing to give it better maneuverability, was so ubiquitous that most thought it was actually a part of the original ship. Cloakshape fighters were designed decades before the Clone Wars and were in wide use across the galaxy by 32 BBY. They were even used by the Jedi Order, with Anakin Skywalker flying one on a mission to Fondor in 23 BBY. It continued to be used for decades afterward, even after people started to consider it outdated. The last major use of Cloakshape fighters was by the New Republic, who included a squadron of them in the hunt for Imperial Warlord Zinj, but due to their advanced age, they were easily countered by the Warlord's forces. The Cloakshape measured 15 meters long by about 12.7 meters wide and 2.8 tall. I assume the length included the aftermarket wing, otherwise the width and height would have to be much larger. It had a top speed of 950 km per hour and was not equipped with a hyperdrive by default. Most Cloakshape users modified it to include a Class 3 hyperdrive, and if you weren't interested in modifying it, you could also purchase a hyperdrive sled or ring to dock it to for around 15,000 credits. It also lacked shields, but most owners added those too. The Cloakshape was armed with 2 laser cannons and 2 concussion missile launchers with a total capacity of 16 missiles. The addition of proton torpedo launchers was a fairly common modification as well, as were upgrades to the other weapons. Another reason the Cloakshape was so popular was its price. It only cost 60,000 credits new, and by the time of the Battle of Yavin, a mere 15,000 used. Skipray Blastboat. The last ship we are going to look at today is the Sienar Fleet System's GAT-12 Skipray Blastboat. This starfighter is technically canon as well, though only in the form of an RPG sourcebook. It was a very large starfighter, really more of a gunship, that was used by the Empire, as well as many pirates, smugglers, and other criminals. It was designed by Republic Sienar Systems shortly before the Clone Wars, but didn't see widespread use until the Imperial era. The Empire was the primary intended customer for the Skipray, however the powerful hyperdrive-equipped starfighter did not fit into the Empire's starfighter doctrine, which demanded swarms of cheap disposable fighters to overwhelm enemies through volume of fire. Despite its rejection by the Imperial Navy, the Empire did purchase a number of Skiprays anyway. Imperial Customs, Imperial Sector Rangers, and other Imperial departments happily snapped up as many blastboats as they could requisition for their patrols and other duties, and became big fans of it. Despite its popularity with these organizations, the lack of interest from the Navy forced Sienar to sell the ship on the open market, where it became one of the most sought-after gunships available. It was highly prized by corporate militaries, mercenaries, pirates, smugglers, and planetary defense forces, and saw use across the galaxy for decades. The Skipray Blastboat came in many configurations. We know of the GAT-12G, H, I, J, M, and P, as well as the later Skipray 24R Blastboat. The differences between them were fairly small, mostly just in their weapons configuration and other equipment on board. The average blastboat measured 25 meters long by 9.2 meters wide and 14.3 tall in flight, or 14.3 wide and 7 tall in landing mode. It had a top speed of 1200 kilometers per hour and a Class II hyperdrive. In fact, it was said to be the smallest ship in the Empire with a hyperdrive, though I'm not sure that is correct. It was well shielded, armored, and armed. The GAT-12G was armed with 3 medium ion cannons, 2 laser cannons, a proton torpedo launcher, and a tractor beam projector. The GAT-12H, M, I, and J had the same 3 ion cannons, a laser cannon turret, a proton torpedo launcher, and a concussion missile launcher. Its magazines could carry 4 torpedoes and 8 missiles for the H and I, or 12 torpedoes and 18 missiles for the J. The 12M and P had a similar loadout, with 3 ion cannons, 2 laser cannons, a torpedo launcher, and a missile launcher, and the 24R had the same weapons but double the missile capacity and better computers. The Skipray Blastboat is the only ship on this list with more than 1 crew, requiring a pilot, co-pilot, and 2 gunners, plus an additional sensor operator for the 24R. It could carry 20 tons of cargo and 1 month of consumables as well. All of this equipment came at a steep cost, with a price tag of 285,000 credits new or 150,000 used. Those are 5 of the best starfighters in Legends. Let me know which of these was your favorite, what else you'd have included, and what other Legends ship categories you'd like to take a look at in the future. I'd also love to know which of these you'd like to see brought into canon. My favorite of these ships was the Ewing, but that wasn't the case until it was redesigned for the Ahsoka episode. I think the one I would most like to see in canon would be the Cloakshape, as I think it would be the easiest to just throw in as some pirate's fighter of choice. But let me know what you think. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. RFC,